To save my daughter in swaddling clothes, I was tortured by human traffickers until I became mentally impaired. Subsequently, doctors diagnosed that my intelligence was equivalent to that of a 3-year-old child. At the company's listing conference, I was frightened into wetting my pants, and at my daughter's first birthday banquet, I made a fool of myself. My husband Adrian tirelessly followed behind me, cleaning up the messes for 5 years. Until I secretly followed him, wanting to attend Tania's kindergarten graduation ceremony together. I heard there were many children at the kindergarten who could play with me. But someone pointed at me and said I was Tania's mother. Those strange looks and harsh words came flooding in. No matter how I waved my hands in denial, no one was willing to believe me. Adrian, suppressing his anger, forcibly stuffed me back into the car. He raised his hand at me, his face full of hatred. Do you have to make everyone mock me and Tania? In that instant, his face seemed to overlap with that of the human traffickers from years ago. The pain from several years prior surged into my body across time and space. Terrified, I held my head and kept muttering, I'm sorry, please don't hit me, okay? Touched by my fear, he finally lowered his hand. With red eyes, he blurted out, I wish you had died at the hands of the traffickers back then. Just at that moment, all my previous memories came flooding back. Slowly lifting my head, I saw Adrian's furrowed brows and a few sparse white hairs. Stunned and not yet reacting, I subconsciously wanted to raise my hand to smooth the wrinkles on his forehead. But Adrian directly dodged, looking disdainfully at my hands covered in cream. Enough, what are you trying to do now? That was the cream deliberately thrown at me by the children when they treated me as a fool just now. My heart felt as if it had been gnawed by ants. I could clearly feel the pain, but couldn't pinpoint the source. So, even my touch now felt disgusting to him. I slowly turned my head to look at the girl beside me, her eyes full of tears. Mechanically, I picked up my most cherished building block toy from the past and handed it to her. How about playing with this? Tania, the daughter I was willing to sacrifice my life to protect fiercely back then. Take your dirty thing away. I hate you the most. My fingers involuntarily curled up. But Adrian coldly scolded her, Tania, she is your mother, she became like this to save you. Tania struggled loudly, no, I don't have such a stupid mother. Why did she save me? I don't want a stupid mother to save me. The repeated stupid mother finally connected all my memories. The adult and child were in a standoff. Lianne, who had hurriedly come over after handling the farce at the graduation ceremony, smiled and soothed, all right, you two stop throwing tantrums. Her gaze lightly fell on me, as if with disdain. I've already clarified in front of those parents, Tania, those children definitely won't mock you anymore. Only then did I remember that I chose to follow today because a few days ago, Lianne deliberately mentioned in front of me that the kindergarten had many fun things. My embarrassing appearance achieved her perfect rescue. The next second, my daughter had already thrown herself into Lianne's arms seeking comfort. Auntie Lianne, you're so nice. Will you be my mom? The intimate attitude was completely different from when facing me. Adrian still had a cold face telling Tania not to fool around, but the tenderness and appreciation in his eyes made me feel cold all over. Slow as I was, I only then realized that it was clarifying that I was not Tania's mother. Nor Adrian's wife. Upon seeing Lianne smile, Adrian's cold expression slowly diminished. Thank you for coming in time. I sat quietly in the car without speaking, but my fingers had dug into the building blocks so hard that they bled. In that instant, the words I wanted to blurt out were swallowed back. All the joy turned into bitterness. From an outsider's perspective, they looked intimate like a family of 3. Only I was detached, like an unwelcome fourth person. I remained silent all the way until we got home. Adrian originally thought I was throwing a child's tantrum by not speaking. It was only when getting out of the car that he noticed the blood from my fingers had smeared everywhere. The veins on his forehead became more prominent, gritting his teeth. Celia, no matter how you hurt yourself, I won't feel sorry. It was as if he was convincing himself. The next second, he sternly asked the auntie to bring out the first aid kit, skillfully lowering his head to treat my wound. I struggled to do it myself, wanting to prove that I was not a useless person. But Adrian told me not to fuss. In the tug-of-war between us, the scissors accidentally stabbed straight into his palm. Seeing the overwhelming hatred in his eyes, I couldn't help but retreat. The explanatory words became stuttered, I can handle it myself. It sounded just like my former mentally impaired self. Adrian had no suspicion at all, only letting out a light laugh. If you could do it alone, I'd really thank heaven. It meant the same as I wish you had died at the trafficker's hands. Lianne, who came in a step late, saw the drops of blood on the ground and couldn't help but scream. She suddenly pushed me away. They still thought I was as mentally impaired as a 3-year-old, and started a slight argument in front of me. Lianne pleaded with him, Adrian, do you have to tie yourself to her for a lifetime? Any great favor has been repaid in these 5 years. Today she can stab you over a few reprimands. If she kills someone in the future, will you still take responsibility? Have you thought about what will happen to Tania in the future? My husband remained silent without responding. After a long time, he said, she is my responsibility for this lifetime. It was clearly a very responsible statement, yet it made sorrow rise in my heart. Was it just responsibility? Lianne cried, but stepped forward to hug him from behind. What about me? Adrian, are you really okay with me marrying someone else? My parents urge me to marry every day. I've endured pressure for you all these years. The word marriage was enough to overturn Adrian's feigned rationality and calmness. His hands clenched into fists, give me a little more time. In the 5 years of my mental impairment, the position that originally belonged to me had become someone else's. Adrian's wound was somewhat deep, fearing the risk of infection. It happened to be my routine checkup in the afternoon, so we went to the hospital together to register. Clearly his hand was bleeding profusely, yet he insisted on sending me to the department first. I stood at the door and softly said to him, I'm sorry. Hearing my apology, he was stunned for a long time. Noticing my gaze on his injured hand, Adrian softened his tone. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have lost my temper at you today. It was like coaxing a child, yet it didn't make me happy at all. Lianne urged him from the side to quickly treat the wound. I heard Adrian smiling to soothe her anxiety, it's fine, if you keep frowning, you won't look good. Suddenly recalling university days when he was playing basketball and someone maliciously tripped him, his foot was clearly swollen badly. But the first thing he did was raise a smile to soothe my emotions. Watching their side-by-side backs, I silently shed tears. Then, following my memory, I found the attending doctor. Dr. Jason. Dr. Jason looked at me in surprise, immediately noticing my difference from before. Mrs. Celia, have you recovered your memory? Oh, now Adrian, this old classmate, really has to treat me to dinner. I made a gesture, please keep it secret, I want to surprise the father and daughter. But in my heart, I knew that my departure might be the biggest surprise for them. Because of my request, Dr. Jason didn't reveal a word to Adrian. Looking at the diagnosis same as before, he showed no emotion. Lianne smiled awkwardly, Adrian, my art exhibition will be held in Haicheng next time, will you come? In 5 years, she had invited Adrian many times, but he always broke the appointments due to my various emergencies. Adrian turned to instruct the driver to safely take me home, your art exhibition today hasn't ended yet, why wait for next time? I can't keep breaking promises to you again and again. His initiative was like a signal, I clearly saw the surprise bursting in Lianne's eyes. My chest felt as if a piece was missing, and the cold autumn wind invaded through the gap, bringing inexplicable chill. It even made one shiver unconsciously. On the way home, I quietly watched the sunset river scenery passing by the car window, not even touching the Lego blocks I usually couldn't put down. The housekeeper Auntie and driver Wayne exchanged glances. Even in my mentally impaired state, my possessiveness towards Adrian was strong, even listing him as private property. Now, watching Adrian leave with someone else, I had no extreme reaction. Auntie asked tentatively, Celia, do you want to drink sweet soup tonight? In the past, I loved Auntie's sweet soup the most. It appeared on the dining table almost every day. But after I was brought back 5 years ago, I never mentioned sweet soup again. I want to. Have you remembered? I chose to lie. I just feel that the sweet soup Auntie makes must be the best in the world. She almost laughed with tears, delighted at signs of my improvement. Okay, Auntie will make it for you tomorrow. Everyone in this house had work to do, but I tiptoed to the room to pack things. But unexpectedly, I found the divorce certificate in the drawer. Suddenly recalling that in the 3rd year of my mental impairment, I was tricked by Lianne with a piece of chocolate cake to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce. We no longer even had a legal relationship. That year, Adrian rarely lost his temper at her greatly, but finally calmed down in Lianne's crying. Adrian, can you think about Tania? If people know she has such a mentally impaired mother who can't even wipe her drool, Tania's growing environment will become very harsh. Since Celia was willing to sacrifice herself for the child back then, what's wrong with sacrificing a bit more now? I didn't know if his final submission was to protect his daughter or because he really found me embarrassing. Perhaps both. On the night of the divorce, Adrian held me and said I'm sorry many times. But all I got was sorry. I quietly took away my own copy of the divorce certificate. Only then did I realize that without a phone or cash, I couldn't even buy a ticket home. Tania suddenly screamed, "Are you stealing something?" In the fright, I accidentally knocked over the nearby ceramic cup. She glared at me viciously, "Compensate me for the cup. This is the birthday gift that Auntie Lianne and Dad made together, quickly compensate me." Together? I lowered my head, the broken porcelain pieces I held had become an eyesore. No wonder Tania, who never liked drinking water, had been protecting this cup every day lately. The "I'm sorry" was clearly on the tip of my tongue, but my lips moved for a moment without saying anything. I let her pounce over, her fists landing on me. I squatted on the ground, asking in a very low voice, "Do you like Lianne that much?" "Why?" After 10 months of pregnancy, mentally impaired for 5 years to save her. She even grew up by my side, why could she hate me to this extent? Doubt flashed in her eyes, as if realizing I was no longer the mother who only had her. But she stubbornly said, "Because you're a fool, I just hate you. Auntie Lianne is a very amazing painter." After hearing this, I realized Lianne's painting was placed in the center of the living room. Even the photo wall had a picture of the 3 of them. Looking around, she had long fully integrated into this home. Losing my rationality, I directly threw the broken porcelain pieces in my hand into the nearby trash bin. Tania was stunned for a moment, then actually reached into the trash bin to fish them out. In an instant, her hand was cut and bleeding profusely. Adrian, returning from the art exhibition, saw his daughter holding a pile of broken porcelain pieces, her hands bleeding and tears flowing. And I stood by coldly watching, like a monster, silent. Lianne rushed up first, coaxing Tania to throw away the porcelain pieces. Distressed to the point of tears, "Let Auntie take you to treat the wound, okay?" Then, while passing by holding the child, she asked Adrian, "Someone like her who loses control and even hurts the child, do you still plan to keep her?" Sending me away, she had advised countless times these years. But Adrian never agreed. Now, his gaze towards me became disgusted, his hand pinching my chin gradually applying force. "Celia, do you have to force me to send you away? Why can't you be obedient? Why hurt your own child?" Then, as if giving up on himself, he sighed, "I'm actually reasoning with a fool." In the past, no matter how outsiders mocked me behind my back, Adrian would explain to his daughter over and over that I wasn't a fool, "She is your mother, a hero who saved many children." Later, as I caused more and more trouble, his patience gradually decreased while caring for his daughter and running the company. The remaining bit of love was always mixed with twisted hatred. Advancing made him uncomfortable, retreating made him guilty. Now he began to agree with others' words. Suddenly, hot tears dropped one by one onto his palm, the burning sensation eroding into his skin. In that instant, Adrian's heart was tightly gripped. I slowly smiled, enduring the pain in my chin and said, "I'm not a fool. I will leave on my own." This time, no need for you to weigh left and right, I will leave myself. Clearly as he wished. Yet Adrian's anger intensified. Celia, you'd better do as you say. Then he directly walked towards the door. Lianne was softly coaxing Tania. That cup, the three of us can make another one together. The daughter wiped away her tears, holding Adrian with one hand and Lianne with the other. Then take me to the horse farm again this week, okay? Wear matching outfits like last time. I withdrew my gaze, not continuing to listen. I walked to my own room. At night when everyone was asleep, I went to the study to check flights for leaving and the route to the airport on the computer. Finally, my gaze fell on the pair of jade bracelets on my wrist, which my husband personally put on me during our wedding. He said this pair of bracelets meant circling me by his side for a lifetime. But after tonight, they would be my travel expenses home. I told Auntie I wanted to go out to buy a birthday gift for Adrian. Auntie, I want to pick the gift myself, you can follow from afar. She was greatly surprised, sighing that my memory had been getting better lately. Sir will be very happy to know. I, lowering my head to fiddle with the small backpack, didn't respond. The pawnshop owner couldn't put down the jade bracelets. Are you really sure to pawn them permanently? If you regret it later, you can't buy them back. Yes. Only when I saw the ticket information on the phone did I have a real sense of leaving. When the gift was placed in front of Adrian, a pair of black agate cufflinks. His first reaction was to question, where did she get the money? There was no credit card deduction record, and even Auntie hadn't asked him for money. Where did she go today? Auntie was stunned for a moment. Celia went to the pawnshop, and also to the store. Adrian didn't even finish listening to her and rushed straight to my room on the second floor. At that time I was cutting the large wedding photo into two. When he noticed my now empty wrists, he showed an understanding expression. One thing after another finally exhausted his patience. Adrian with red eyes, his face full of fatigue. Do you know that pair of jade bracelets was my mother's relic? 5 years, how long do you want to torture me? Facing his hysterical questioning, I didn't make a sound. Soon you and Tania can get rid of me. Return to living as normal people. Before Adrian left, he looked deeply at me. He concluded, Lianne is right, you are a monster. I should have sent you away long ago. I quietly looked at the once incredibly happy us in the wedding photo. Squatting on the ground, silently crying. Just now, I really wanted to ask, Adrian, do you still love me? But the words reached my lips, and the first thing that flashed in my mind was those 2 divorce certificates. That was probably the best answer. Why make myself more embarrassed? I just couldn't understand why we, who were once the closest, had grown further apart. Before leaving, I specially went to see my daughter Tania. She was swinging in the yard. When she saw me, she wanted to run. Having never been a competent mother for a day, I could only imitate Lianne's usual way to coax her. I slightly bent down, smiling innocently, I'm sorry for breaking your cup. As compensation, how about making the mother you don't want disappear? Just like in her diary. Tania wanted a normal mother. Not a fool mother who was often mocked and wet her pants. Joy showed on her face, really? The undisguised happiness stung my eyes. I nodded gently, handing another gift to her. Tell your dad happy birthday for me. The past 5 years I couldn't control, but I chose to give him peace for the rest of his life. This gift had poured in my greatest sincerity. Watching my back as I got in the car and left, Tania seemed to sense something. Chasing the car and shouting loudly, Mom, where are you going? Wasn't it agreed to give her a normal mother back? When Adrian attended a gathering in the circle, he ran into his old classmate Dr. Jason and his wife. Mrs. Elise smiled, Why are you alone today without bringing Celia? Must be feeling sorry for your wife just recovering from a serious illness. Hearing this, Adrian suddenly froze. What did you just say? She quickly covered her mouth. Oh, did I spill her prepared surprise first? Dr. Jason held his forehead. I knew your big mouth couldn't keep a secret. Seeing Adrian's dazed look, he couldn't help but tease, What? Overjoyed to madness? Don't expose your wife when you go back, she specifically asked me to keep it secret. When did it happen? Just a couple of days ago when you brought her for the checkup. Only then did he understand that I had already returned to normal. Adrian put the wine glass back on the waiter's tray, walking out in panicked steps, leaving the couple behind scratching their heads. Adrian kept replaying the events of the past 2 days. He couldn't understand why I chose to conceal it. He knew I was never one to prepare surprises. Adrian realized his attitude had been particularly bad these 2 days, so he turned to buy my formerly favorite osmanthus pudding. But the ring in the pawnshop's glass display case at the alley entrance made him lose focus. It was identical to the one he gave me 7 years ago when we married. A vague guess formed in his mind. Adrian stepped into the pawnshop, pointing at the ring. I want to buy this. The owner adjusted his glasses. Hey, you're really lucky. This is the only permanently pawned item in our store right now. This casual remark was like a sharp blade stabbing fiercely into the man's heart, stirring his chest into a bloody mess. On the day of pawning, I hesitated. But the desire to go home was urgent. The ring on my hand was the best choice. Back home, even as Tania sobbed and called him, Dad, I have something to tell you. Adrian, who used to respond to every request, didn't stop. But searching all the areas I often went to, he found nothing. The daughter climbed to the 2nd floor, tugged at his clothes, handed that gift to Adrian. This is the gift Mom wants to give you. That pair of black cufflinks, hadn't they been given already? The one in front looked more like a jewelry box. With trembling hands, he took it, opened the gift, and inside was prominently that pair of bracelets. But today, when he clearly lost his temper questioning, even blurting out to send me away, I didn't even have the desire to explain. Under the bracelets was a small note. Congratulations, finally rid of me, this fool. This birthday gift should have touched his heart. The words Adrian had been saying these days were said by me in another form. He squatted down to eye level with his daughter. Where is your mom? Tania wiped away tears. Mom got in the car and left. No matter how I called, she didn't respond. The daughter I sacrificed myself to save 5 years ago, now I didn't look back at her once. According to Dr. Jason, Celia's condition had improved a few days ago. He suddenly recalled those dirty thoughts of sending me away, the child's rejection, even between him and Lianne. Actually, I knew it all. As if possessed, Adrian rushed to the drawer. Pulling it open, there was only one divorce certificate left. Only his own. In that instant, it was like falling into an ice cave. His hands and feet gradually became cold, only then realizing that what I said yesterday about leaving was sincere. But Adrian mistakenly thought I was just throwing a child's tantrum like before. Yes, finally rid of this burden. The messes cleaned up for me these years were enough. Any great favor had been repaid. It was a happy ending for all. He should clearly be happy, but it felt like something was draining from his heart. Like forcibly cutting a piece of flesh from his body, making Adrian sweat in pain. But my poor acting skills actually deceived him. In the past, I was someone who couldn't help blushing even when lying. Tania looked at her dad's dazed appearance, somewhat uneasy, asking, "Will Mom come back?" But he coaxed his daughter, his voice hoarse, "Mom will come back, we'll wait for Mom together." It sounded more like self-deception. Everyone knew Tania was my life. Even mentally impaired, my subconscious couldn't tolerate anyone being even slightly bad to my daughter. In the past, if Adrian scolded half a sentence, I would protect her. You can't say that about Tania. Adrian thought he just needed to wait for me to come back. Adrian lived as if nothing happened, daily routine between home and company. But the home was eerily calm. So Adrian attended more and more drinking parties. He didn't want to see that empty home. Alcohol can numb nerves, but the fact was the opposite. Sleepless all night, his mind full of Celia's face. He couldn't hear Celia's daily welcome home. Adrian couldn't hear her chasing after the daughter begging to play together. Adrian occasionally socialized, returning late at night. She would wait in the living room every day, always keeping a lamp on. When Adrian sees the lamp, he knows he's home. Inexplicably, Adrian remembered her goodness. At the beginning, he wholeheartedly cared for his wife. No one hoped more urgently than him for her to recover. Every 3 months checkup, no good news. Gradually, Adrian grew tired of this waiting life. So when Lianne mentioned divorce, he went along with it. 5 years of benevolence and righteousness. In the future, others wouldn't blame him. At night, he clutched that note, looking at it over and over, smiling and then crying. Good that she's gone, best if she never comes back for life. But Adrian could no longer deceive himself. It wasn't him getting rid of me, it was me not wanting him. He lay on my bed, trying to smell her scent. But there was none. Because before leaving, I specially asked the household maid to wash all the bed sheets and items. Even that wedding photo only had Adrian left. In this home, I erased all traces I could. Landing in Jing City, I smelled the long-missed osmanthus fragrance all over the ground. Since that accident, Adrian basically blocked all my news. Externally claiming I went abroad for recuperation. In those past years, I couldn't even hear the words Jing City. The harm from that trafficking case was like engraved in my bones. My parents had special jobs and couldn't leave Jing casually. They could only know my status through Adrian's mouth. Like coaxing a child, they often sent some novel little toys. The home had another osmanthus tree. When the wind blew, golden osmanthus flowers filled the entire yard. Hearing Dad's hearty laughter, I caught a big fish today. Mom seemed to have expected the outcome. 5 hours a day for one fish, you might as well release it on the spot. Lady Linda, please respect my labor results. Celia loves braised fish jerky, so no release today. She shook her head and smiled. Hurry out and help me pick osmanthus. After drying, send to our Celia. Yes. Except for parents, no one will love you consistently for 10 years. Seeing me standing outside the yard, Mom's basket dropped. With red eyes, she walked towards me in panicked steps. Noticing I was alone, did you naughtily run back by yourself? What if you got lost? Why not speaking? Are you injured somewhere? Let Mom see quickly. I grabbed her hand, clearly wanting to laugh, but tears flowed when I spoke. Mom, I'm back. Lady Linda, who was always decisive in the workplace, was stunned. She hadn't heard this mom for a long time, 1836 days. The person hoped for day after day was now in front of her. Mom stroked my face, sighing, good to be back, good to be back. Turning her head, she shouted, Devon, hurry and cook your fish. Arcelia is back. Parents didn't mention Adrian and the daughter in front of me. I smiled and said it's fine. But they turned and instructed subordinates to investigate. When marrying Adrian, it was already our 5th year together. On his birthday, I pretended to forget. Adrian smiled and asked for a gift. I said I didn't prepare. We've been together so long, I think we don't need these formalities. But he wasn't angry. His gaze drifted to a corner of the living room. Oh, like that? I followed his gaze and knew I was exposed. Pouting, I asked him, how did you know? Adrian's brows and eyes were full of smiles, touching my head. Celia, your acting is really too bad. But this time I pretended for so long, everyone could see my flaws. Only he didn't notice at all. Actually, Adrian didn't care about my details, didn't care about my joys and sorrows. The next day, my mom signed me up for a horse riding competition, under the pretext of going to win the championship. I couldn't help but laugh and cry. How many years since I touched a horse? What if I come last? She waved her hand, the child I gave birth to, don't I know your capabilities? I knew she wanted me to divert my attention. Looking up was a wall full of photos, all records of awards from various competitions I participated in before. Horse riding competitions, Latin dance, Go competitions. I was never inferior to others. Taking the registration form from Mom's hand, I'll participate. Since getting pregnant, I hadn't been to the South City horse farm, but unexpectedly Serena still brought me the best horse. Really a rare guest. I laughed, long time no see, Serena. In that year's trafficking case, her son was also among them. Serena always wanted to find an opportunity to thank me, finally finding it 6 years later. You're willing to come back, this large group of us can finally be at ease. The two smiled at each other. Before the horse riding competition started, Serena told me there would be a good show today. At first, I didn't care, until on the field I saw Lianne also wearing riding attire. She walked towards me. Celia, I will definitely win this competition. Pointing at Adrian and his daughter on the stands, in the future, I will be the one standing by their side. I looked at Lianne's eyes full of determination to win, smiled. If you like being a stepmom so much, then go for it. I don't like competing with others. I rode the horse high over the finish line. The field's record was refreshed. And Lianne was still half a distance away. I stood waiting for her to dismount, sincerely thank you for letting me break the record I set 6 years ago. I heard you want to hold an art exhibition at Huisheng. I've asked friends to approve your application. Serena and the others, to vent for me, casually blocked her approval. Even exhibitions in other cities were suspended. As long as Lianne won me today, her art exhibition could proceed normally. She threw the whip in her hand. No need for your pity. Is that so? Then don't hold your exhibition, anyway, no one watches. The best way to punish someone is to destroy what they value most. I turned and left, not caring about her fury and resentment. Lianne looked up at Adrian, wanting to seek help from him. But found his gaze always following me in black and white riding attire. Could it be that after years of devotion, it all came to nothing? Serena's son had bright eyes, full of admiration. Auntie Celia, you ride horses so cool. I smiled and touched his head. Thank you. Turning my head, I saw Tania standing on the side stand. I didn't know if she found the mother she wanted. Today should be to watch Lianne's competition. After all, my biological daughter. I smiled and nodded at her. When going to change clothes, Adrian caught up. Celia, let's talk. How long since I heard him call me like that? In these 5 years, often causing trouble, he would only helplessly scold calling me Celia. I turned back. Mr. Adrian isn't in a hurry for this moment. Not much different from before, as if those 5 years were just a big dream. But the admiration for Adrian in my eyes had disappeared completely. His face lost all color, looking dazed and dejected. Are you still resentful that I filed for divorce while you were unconscious? I only wanted to protect Tania's environment. I never cheated, nor did I do anything to betray you. Of course I knew he didn't cheat. Adrian was busy every day caring for me, the daughter, and managing the company. Perhaps the closest with Lianne was agreeing to see that art exhibition. But once there's a grudge in the heart, one can't interact with him as carefree as before. I called him as before, Adrian, so from beginning to end, I haven't blamed you a word, have I? Leaving is because I want to go back to my own home. Adrian with red eyes, you can argue with me, even scold me. It was me divorcing while you were ill, you can ask me for property division and such. Instead of lightly passing over like this. From meeting in university to now, 10 years. But the two were like strangers. If he didn't initiate, I remained silent. Then in what capacity should I argue with you? Your ex-wife? I have no right to interfere with your interactions with others. Adrian, we're both adults, peaceful resolution like this is the best for the child. My calmness seemed beyond his expectation. No hysterical questioning, no settling old scores. This considerate attitude saved a lot of trouble. Compared to the endless lawsuits and deadly hatred in the circle's resentful couples, it was very decent. But Adrian's brows were heavy, with no happy expression at all. Yes, the divorce certificate he personally gave out gave me the chance to quickly withdraw. It also deprived Adrian of the opportunity to turn back and salvage. He unwillingly asked, what about the daughter? What about Tania? I tightened the water bottle. I'll give child support according to her current living standard, then pick her up for winter and summer vacations to stay here a few days. If you want to remarry and it's inconvenient to raise the child, I'll directly fight for custody. Excessively rational. calmer than when she debated 1 against 4 at first meeting. Adrian, do you know when I finally came to my senses? It was when you said you wished I'd been killed outright by the traffickers. From that moment, we were destined not to be together. Adrian chuckled lightly, but the sadness in his eyes was about to overflow. I understand. After a long time, he said. I won't remarry, I'll continue to raise the child. He knew if he lost even the child's custody, he really wouldn't see her face in the future. Adrian wouldn't be foolish enough to quarrel with me. These years because of my illness, my dad had supported his career a lot. In that trafficking case, I saved many children. Those who knew the inside story basically carried gratitude. The Ilmi only foolishly played with blocks, the beneficiary became the pillowside person Adrian. Approval fast tracks, funding support. Although he was indeed hard-working caring for me these years, the returns obtained had long exceeded the efforts. And Lianne, after running around for days, got no news. She originally thought I was joking that day. All cities for touring exhibitions were halted. Without the painter identity, it was no different from killing her. She could only carry gifts and apologetically come to me shamefully. If I didn't see her one day, she could only wait from dawn to dusk. But ran into Adrian fulfilling his promise, bringing Tania to my home for a short stay. But no one paid attention to Lianne's embarrassment. The former neglect and mockery thoroughly returned to her at this moment. As soon as Adrian entered, my dad went into the study with a long face. Tania held a doll, staring blankly at the trophies in the full-wall glass display cabinet. Even nearby were newspapers reporting the kidnapping case that year. At 5, she could already read. So Mom, is this amazing? I smiled without responding, but without the former intimate attitude. The osmanthus in the yard had all fallen. Recalling the first time Adrian came to my home was also such a scene. Just our 10 years of feelings were like this pot of osmanthus tea. Fading time after time until tasteless. The osmanthus tea was pushed in front of him. Next time I'll have the driver pick up Tania. Adrian's mouth showed a bitter smile, naturally understanding I didn't want to see him. Okay. The fate between people is strange, perhaps it can accompany a lifetime. But Adrian and I ended here.